Let's start at high noon, Dan.
Let's.
12 p.m. on the Fox network. I believe this is a Gus game, Gus and Joel Klatt.
Does it involve Ohio State or Michigan?
It does involve Ohio State.
Oh, here's my surprised face.
Lucky guess. Lucky guess. Ohio State minus 16 on the road at Penn State. Ooh, okay. 16, that is an enormous line in a game like this. You got to go back to 2016 to find the last time Penn State won. You got to go all the way back to 2009 to find the last time the Buckeyes won by a margin like this in State College. I think there are two very simplistic ways of looking at this football game.
Well, considering there are two hosts, I think we've got them.
Yeah, well, that's true as well.
Yeah.
The first is that people are going to say Penn State's just overrated. They're overrated. Look at the Michigan game. They got embarrassed. Ohio State is just as good, if not better, as Michigan. This is going to be a runaway train. It's the best offense in the country. Runaway train. That's the first. The second is, well, Ohio State hasn't played a competent offense all year, Dan. They haven't played a competent offense all year. They're on the road in Happy Valley.
Who is, by the way, the best offense Ohio State has played? Because they don't have a top 40 per SP Plus offense on the schedule thus far. Who's the best one?
I'm saying it's going to be Penn State.
Sure.
Thus far, beyond Penn State, yeah. I mean, is it Wisconsin? Is it
the answer
Michigan
is Michigan
State?
and that was not pretty. Yeah.
Right. So they haven't played a competent offense all year. They're on the road in Happy Valley. By the way, if you've never been to a big game in Happy Valley, it's going to be loud. This is going to be like a rock concert.
Yeah. Everybody
will be jazzed up for this matchup. So tough place to play. They're going to win, but the cover's 16 in Beaver Stadium. Those are the two things that you're going to hear people saying all week. Which side of the fence are you on, if at all, Dan?
In this matchup? In terms of my pick or in terms of in the conversation around Ohio State?
In terms of those two arguments that you will hear this week, are you leaning more Penn State? Are you leaning more Ohio State?
I'm leaning more on it is a good point that Ohio State has not played an offense that has the ability, not saying Penn State always has, but has the ability to challenge teams and put teams and defenses in binds. So I have Penn State here to cover this spread. And I'm so confident in this, Ty. Get that itchy finger ready. Get it ready. Pick of the week. Lock of the week.
Lock of the week.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
Here's my justification. Penn State's offense is not altogether dependable. And we saw what their defense was or really was not able to do against Michigan, in that they were not able to adjust to Michigan's bully ball strategy. I don't trust that we've seen Ohio State respond to any and all problems. And that to me is the issue and I guess, is this not a whiteout technically?
Technically not a whiteout.
Technically not a whiteout. It's going to be, especially for an early game, as loud as any early Penn State game has been in recent history. And so I think with that juice, I think coming off of Iowa, and I don't think it's a full body blow theory, but that offense was, within the context of what we're used to seeing from Ohio State, relatively stymied by a very good Iowa defense. So I think the opportunity is there for Penn State, clearly the most talented complete team, because I saw what Notre Dame fielded on offense and has since. I think Penn State is a more talented offense at this moment because of the playmakers they have at receiver. I am in on Penn State. This game is always a little bit sneaky close, right, Ty? I'm sure you're about to make that point. And maybe on game day, maybe on Big Noon, Big Ten, they're going to say, this one's going to be closer than the experts are saying. Guess what, Ty? I'm the expert. It's going to be close. Penn State covers this spread. Boom.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, I mean, look, they're going to be up early and drinking at 6 a.m. That's just the way this is going to go.
They are in July too, but yeah,
they are in July too. But especially now that they have a reason to do so. I may be biased, but I don't think Penn State is as bad as it looked against Michigan. That is not to imply that the loss to Michigan was any kind of fluke. I think far from it. But that game came off the swivel as around the time Penn State's defense started to get tired in the second half.
Yeah.
Remember, Michigan had the ball in that game for 42 minutes. 42 minutes. They wore Penn State down to a nub. with that rushing attack. It finally broke open midway through like the third quarter, I want to say. So it is not wrong in your head to think of that game like some sort of piñata, where Michigan just kept beating, and suddenly pop. That's when it all sort of went to hell for Penn State. It would also be easy to say, well, can't Ohio State just do the same thing Michigan did? Right? Seems like a fair point. They've got the pieces to do it, but that sort of ignores the way that Ohio State plays. That ignores their identity as a whole, which is really geared more around the passing assault.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Trey Henderson, I think Maya Williams, whoever can put up numbers against Penn State's defense, they will put up numbers against Penn State's run defense because Penn State's run defense is not very good. All I'm saying is that Ohio State, though the best offense in the country, in my view, is not a random shapeshifter. They're not just suddenly, poof, going to transform into this Michigan ground assault. It's not who they are.
Well, the second half of the Notre Dame game, they kind of were, right? They started Notre Dame took away the pass, and Ohio State really started hammering Notre Dame successfully on the ground.
All I'm saying is their identity is still much more of a pass-first team as opposed to a team that is going to be a Michigan and run it for 42 minutes. That is not who Ohio State is. That's not who they will be in this game either. They will pass more than Michigan did. And in terms of the point spread, weirdly, I think that works in Penn State's favor because Penn State actually can play the pass. I think Penn State will be feisty. The offense, as you said, rightfully is not without its flaws, but I think they're going to score on Ohio State. I think there will be an adjustment period for a bit as the Buckeyes settle in against a better opponent, probably easily the best opponent they faced all season long. I expect them to win outright, but I agree with you. I'm not making it a lock of the week, but I think it's like 31-21 in favor of Ohio State.
Does anybody do anything as consistently successful as James Franklin loses barely to Ohio State
Late game
in a
James.
myriad of ways?
Late game James. It's still a thing, and it will be a thing, probably.
You remember when JT Barrett randomly became Patrick Mahomes in the fourth quarter of the game a few years ago? Like, oh, JT Barrett finished 15 of 16 for 286 yards. And they lost by 1 because JT Barrett turned into a Hall of Fame quarterback in that moment. So, yes, there are a number of ways in which James Franklin and Penn State have barely lost. You remember the call at the end of the game on, was it 4th and short? They called just sort of an inside zone, and Ohio State snuffed it out. So, yeah, that's what James Franklin does. He loses very close to Ohio State.
I am convinced that Penn State is not as bad as they looked against Michigan.
Okay.
I am also convinced that Ohio State against a more competent offense is a wrinkle we have not seen. And I could see it taking them a little bit of time to adjust, to figure it out.
Who's the star for Penn State in this game? Then you're like, oh, man, that guy is for real. Look what he just did against Ohio State.
I would like
Joey
to
Porter
see them,
Jr.?
I would like to see them use more of Nick Singleton out of the backfield. I would like to believe that they can get some kind of push up front, but the running game, though, try as they might to make it more of a thing, still remains inconsistent to me. It still is not something that you could really hang your hat on and trust. So I think if they can find ways to get Singleton the ball, Ohio State knows that they want to do that.
Right.
I think he could be a real difference maker. They have enough weapons out wide. I think, especially with the way they've used the tight end, it provided Sean Clifford can stay upright and healthy and doesn't do any kind of dumb things back there with his decision making. I think they're going to be able to move the ball in this team. It's just a function of
You think Penn State's going to move it on Ohio State?
I do.
I don't know, man. They've gotten, especially up front, those linebackers are actually good now.
I know. I think they'll move it. I think they'll move. But 31-21 is my final.
I think it's going to be close at halftime, and then the Penn State defense, or excuse me, the Penn State offense really struggles in the second half. I think you get that Jim Knowles second half. That's all.